Westpac warns a wealth tax is coming. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because I'd like to look at this article shared to me by a viewer about a wealth tax coming to New Zealand. Isn't that fantastic? We've all seen the footage of people just proudly fleeing California to get away from the oppressive taxation that they have there. And the proposals they have, they're suggesting putting in place to tax people for years after they even left the state. Wealth taxes are just atrocious. They are utterly atrocious. They're an attack on... Oh, I mean, what do you think people are going to do? They'll find ways to get around it. This is the problem. The more taxes you create to prop up your ludicrous government schemes, the more people find ways to get around it. And what makes you think you have the right to take someone else's wealth? It's disgusting in a way. It really, really is. And you can't get me with the social contract argument because there's no such thing as a social contract. For a contract to be legally binding, there needs to be considered. And there needs to be a negotiation, and there needs to be an agreement. Do those things exist when you're forced into a social contract? So let's have a look. A wealth tax is coming, Westpac economists say. This is just the last thing New Zealand probably needs. So sorry to all the Kiwi viewers. Guys, I feel sorry for you. New Zealanders are likely to face new taxes on wealth and assets, such as houses, within the next decade as social pressures force government to move on growing inequality between homeowners and renters, a leading economist says. Westpac has released its latest economic overview, in which chief economist Dominic Stephens said the economy has shown its resilience in fine style. The bank now expects unemployment to peak at 6.2%, about the same as in 2009. The recent run of house price growth was not likely to be a short-term trend, he said. He expected house price inflation to be tracking at 15% by mid-next year. So it looks like you Kiwis have got the same problems we have over here in Australia, if not a bit worse. House prices are reacting squarely to the recent fall in mortgage rates. Who could have predicted that? That artificially lowering the cash rates would drive up house prices. Who could have predicted that? Who ever warned about that? I mean, come on. By next year, low mortgage rates will be joined by a recovering economy, producing ongoing house price increases. So it's just a never-ending scheme, isn't it? You've got to get in there, unless you do like some of the other examples we were looking at from New Zealand, where people were buying apartments off the plan and they didn't go up and they lost money. While rising house prices were an unintended consequence of the Reserve Bank's interest rate cuts, surely they knew that was going to happen. It didn't mean the central bank would reverse course, he said. Stevens said he still expected the official cash rate to fall below zero next year. So they're predicting negative rates in New Zealand. So a wealth tax and negative rates for New Zealand. Fantastic. The social pressure associated with the widening gaps between those who do own a home and those who don't is building, he said. Meanwhile, government deficits were growing, even though the tax take was going to outstrip Treasury's pessimistic forecasts, he said. Extra tax would be allocated on a 2 for debt, 1 for social spending basis, allowing positive fiscal surprises and more spending. But he said eventually there would not be enough money to maintain that. Governments would have to tax more and or spend less. And what do you think they're going to do? Deficits combined with growing wealth inequality will put pressure on for tax change. It was likely that would start to be seen in earnest in 5 years or more, he said. The government will still be running large deficits mid-decade. Beyond that, the aging population will increase the cost of New Zealand's superannuation and healthcare, rendering the current fiscal trajectory unsustainable. The required adjustments to our fiscal position can't be delayed forever. Sooner or later, some form of consolidation will be necessary, though the precise form this takes will depend on which party is leading the government at the time. Do you think it'll really make much of a difference between the two parties over there? I mean, you know, your glorious leader there, one with an improved margin. Our pick is that a future government will introduce some form of tax on assets, such as land tax, capital gains tax, or a wealth tax. Societal concerns about increasing wealth inequality is only going to intensify, eventually creating a large constituency for such a tax. The tax experts agree that broadening the tax base would enhance economic efficiency. Of course they would. Stevens said he was personally in favour of a capital gains tax, although a land tax had wider parliamentary support. Stevens said overall, the economy had been far more resilient than anyone expected when COVID-19 first hit. I think the public sector has been slow to recognise that, but the facts are in. There are people who would like to say we'll see a second downturn, but the stories become convoluted and complex. While government support was rolling off, so too were economic restrictions, he said. Globally, the economic gap between countries that have controlled the virus and countries that have not had it as wide is as wide as ever. New Zealand is lucky to find itself in a relatively COVID-free part of the world. Long may that last, because Asia's resilient economies have backstopped our agricultural exports in an otherwise difficult situation. And for all the Australians watching, you've got to realise the New Zealand economy is actually at a higher level of economic complexity than Australia. We need to get them in the Federation. Okay? They need to join the Federation. Let that wayward colony, let them come home. Come on. Come on, Kiwis. You know you want to be Australian. You know it. I'm sure that'll get them fired up. But economic activity was still below pre-COVID because of the loss of tourism, which usually represents 5% of GDP. And let's compare that to us over here, guys. What's tourism for us is what? 3.3% or 3.1% of our GDP. 4.6% of our exports. Stevens said Westpac now assumed Australian visitors would return mid-next year and New Zealand would gradually loosen restrictions for other countries from September. We expect that visitor arrival numbers will start off small, gradually lifting as a vaccine becomes more widely available and confidence begins to return. So there we have it, everyone. A potential for a wealth tax in New Zealand, capital gains tax. They're going to get all these taxes, that Australians have. We don't have a wealth tax yet. I think that's the scariest one. But the fact that they're also predicting negative interest rates, there we have it. What do you think, everyone? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a Kiwi, what tax would you prefer? A wealth tax, capital gains tax, or a land tax? Pick one. Let us know in the comments. Take care, everyone. If you want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. Or probably not the Kiwis. You can buy our merch from Teespring or the pocket squares that Rachel makes. You can see one behind me right there from the Heise blog. You can support us using Gold Paths from the Perth Mint or support us via PayPal. Take care, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.